Thank you for the kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And actually, it's particularly meaningful for us to present today being a supplier to the healthcare industry, given that most of the people in the room, I suspect, probably represent various parts of the provider organizations. But as I'm thinking about our talk today and the topic of our talk, it appeared to me that many of the challenges that we face in engaging our employees, particularly with respect to integration activities, parallel each other. And they parallel each other in several different ways, in which I'll talk about. So if I can figure out how to use the, okay, good. So a little bit about the company itself, and by no means is this intended to be an advertisement for the corporation. But Hospira, as was mentioned, we are a local Chicago-based company, but we're also the world's leading provider of injectable drugs and infusion technologies, at least as measured in highly regulated markets around the world. So we market injectable pharmaceuticals, primarily generic products. We invest in highly similar biologic products and also infusion management technologies, principally directed towards safe medication management through medication management software and advanced technologies in that segment. So when I'm talking to analysts about the company, they often ask me, well, what is your strategy? You operate in an industry today that faces a significant amount of challenges with respect to how we're going to deliver healthcare in the future, how we're going to afford to deliver healthcare in the future, how we're going to address the economic challenges that our industry faces with rapidly changing population demographics, acuity of care, and so forth. And given that we're a company that's really only 8 years old, despite the fact that we come from a parent company that's over 100 years old, we were a recent spinoff 8 years ago from Abbott Laboratories, we had the opportunity to establish a strategy for the corporation going forward. And it occurred to us at the time that given our provider customers are primarily hospitals and subacute alternate care venues, that all of our customers face significant economic challenges. And what we needed to do to be successful was to be part of a solution to our customers. Our customers were operating on razor-thin margins. Customers are facing challenges of integration, of expanding their networks, and dealing in a whole different environment of healthcare delivery going forward. And so the strategy that we developed for the corporation was to be a solution, to provide products that make a meaningful difference in the cost of healthcare. And we do that by providing new generic pharmaceuticals. We aggressively expand our portfolio with new products, more highly competitive generic pharmaceuticals, and in the future, hopefully, God willing and the FDA cooperating, highly similar versions of biologic products, as we all know, very expensive medications today, by creating a more competitive environment and thus reducing the cost of those pharmaceuticals. And we also do it by affecting patient care in a positive fashion by reducing medication errors. And we do that, as I mentioned earlier, through medication management software and advanced infusion technologies. So, as I mentioned before, one of the things that we share in common are challenges with respect to engagement of our employees, particularly when we are set about to execute various integration activities. And so, if you're a CEO of a hospital or a healthcare executive in a health system, one of the things that you've been actively doing in the past few years, I suspect, is figuring out how to expand your organization and how to integrate the expansion, whether they are investments in new alternate care venues, physician integration activities, and so forth. Similarly, as a public company, we operate on the adage that you either grow or you die. And obviously, we'd prefer to avoid the latter. So what we're doing to grow, being a highly centric U.S. company, we're looking to expand outside the United States in order to grow and to remain globally competitive. And in doing so, we face the integration challenges when we make investments, inorganic investments in merger and acquisition activity outside the United States, just as you do when you consolidate by adding a new hospital or a new healthcare venue to your health system. And all these involve employee engagements and how to merge cultures together and how to positively affect the employee engagement experience as you perform integration activities. Those are the parallels that we both face, despite the fact, whether the fact that we are suppliers to the industry, whether we are providers of healthcare, or whether we are educators. And all these things we share in common. So what Pam is going to share with you today is the experience that we have undergone the last couple of years with a project that we call Ignite. And it's our effort at expanding and advancing our employee engagement, particularly as it involves expanding our company with integration activities in the United States and around the world. So Pam?
So I start off by asking myself, what is so hard about this leadership thing? You know, why are we all here for an entire afternoon? You know, I go to lots of conferences, I do lots of reading, and over it becomes clear that leadership development is not something that just happens naturally. So I spend a lot of time thinking about, well, what is it that makes this leadership thing so challenging? And last week I had an opportunity to go to another conference, much like this one, a morning session, half-day session, and I heard something that kind of resonated with me about why leadership is so difficult. And I wanted to share that with you and see whether it resonates at all with you. And what we heard was that one of the real challenges of leadership is that in order to execute any strategic change, any program that you're trying to execute, it really involves leadership getting people to behave differently. And when you start talking about behavioral change, you're talking about something that's critically difficult to do. Any of us that have tried to do anything, New Year's resolution like lose weight, start a new workout regime, anything that requires behavioral change, quitting smoking, those things are very, very difficult to make happen. And so I think one of the biggest leadership challenges that leaders have is how to, in fact, get people to change their behaviors so that everybody's marching toward executing the strategy or executing the plan that you have put in place. And in our current environment, Tom just mentioned a couple of things that Hospira experiences. We have lots of change all the time. We're integrating, we're pulling together different people from different companies, we're going global. And so people cannot continue to behave the way they've been behaving and do the things that have made them successful to this point going forward. We've all heard the old adage, what got you here is not going to get you there. So part of the leadership challenge is getting people to behave differently, to execute against whatever the current strategy or whatever those current plans are that you're trying to execute. So when we think about leadership development, we normally think about developing, say at Hospira, the top 100 leaders of a 16,000 person company. That would be the traditional way to think about leadership. We're going to get those top 100 leaders trained up with skills and competencies that will allow them to help us move our organization forward to deliver against whatever our strategic priorities are. And at Hospira, we clearly have those programs. We have those leadership development programs. We have programs for our vice presidents, our directors, for our first line supervisors. We have skills and competencies and behaviors and leadership models and all of those things. But when we took a look at leadership development at Hospira, I think part of what we concluded is that in order to be effective in driving behavioral change, we have to engage all 16,000 employees. We can't just focus on the top 100. And so when I think about what's a little bit unique about our approach to leadership development is that we think about leadership at every level. We expect everyone at every level in the organization to exhibit certain leadership behaviors that are appropriate to their level, that allow them to influence and manage the things that they can influence and manage from wherever they sit in the organization. So it's no longer just the responsibility of the top 100 leaders to execute against our strategic objectives. So if we're going to be successful, we need to engage all 16,000 people that we have on this map illustrating our employee population at Hospira. So when I joined the organization about 3 years ago, I did the traditional one-on-one with senior leaders of the organization. I talked to lots of employees. I tried to uncover what I thought were the real opportunities for leadership development at Hospira, keeping in mind that leadership now is leadership at every level. So developing, managing, and engaging leaders at every level to help drive their performance and ultimately impact our business results. And based upon those conversations, there were really 4 areas that we identified as potential opportunities, and this is now back in 2009 when I first joined Hospira. The first is that we really needed to improve the awareness and understanding of what programs and services we offered. What kinds of leadership development program do we have? What does our performance management system look like? We had many people in Hospira who didn't even know what it was. What are all the things that we talk about when we talk about development, leadership development, performance management, engagement? The second opportunity was really to get people excited about what we had and what we could develop and deliver as an organization. But in order for people to really get excited, they have to understand, well, what's in it for me? If they understand what's in it for me, then they're more likely to want to participate in whatever that activity is, whether it's a performance management process or a leadership development program. Third, felt that there was an opportunity to really create more personal accountability around all of this, so that people would be walking around saying, well, what is it that I should be doing now? Should I be putting together my career management plan, or should I be doing my self-review for my performance conversation with my manager? That without that personal accountability, you really just get into a sense of entitlement. And people think they're entitled to get a performance review or entitled to go to a leadership development workshop. But if there's some personal accountability, it's a whole different mindset. And then finally, if we're able to do all those first 3 things, and we're able to increase employee engagement, that we would have people not just saying, what should I do, but what more can I do to actually drive results for this organization? So these were the 4 things that I was tackling. And interestingly, Tom was one of the people that I had an opportunity to do one of those one-on-one conversations with. And here I am talking to the commercial leader of our organization. And of course, he's talking all that commercial talk about marketing and branding and customer loyalty and doing focus groups and all this great stuff, telling me about what commercial does. And at that moment, I had what this document calls an aha moment. I really started to think about things a little bit differently. I had this aha moment, and I said, I need to be thinking about this like a commercial person would, and it led to really a full-on branding campaign where we at Hospira took the opportunity to reach out to our employees and find out, what can we do differently? What's going to resonate with you, that you will be excited about the programming that we offer you, that you will engage in the various opportunities that you have for development, but it has to be something that resonates with the employee, that gets them excited about participating in these activities. So we literally did a full-on branding campaign where we engaged some of our internal resources, some of whom are sitting in this room. Thank you very much to our marketing department, who helped us literally put together a marketing campaign, a branding campaign, where we went before the employees and we presented them with 3 different images, if you will, to see what would resonate with them. So this first one talked about unique dreams and common goals, and there was a whole piece that went along with it that I won't read you today that really talked about what does this mean, and to see whether this would resonate with employees, this idea that they could have unique dreams that would connect with Hospira's common goals, and together we could deliver great value for our customers and ultimately for patients. The second option was something called human sustainability, which spoke to individuality in the workplace, but how individuals, again, can come together to drive enterprise-wide results, how we can look at balance in our life, how we can collaborate and together cultivate great things to drive the success and performance of our company. And then the third one, which you might guess from the title of our presentation, is the one that was actually the one that actually resonated with our employees. They really liked the energy around this notion of sparking the fire within. And I'm going to quickly read you just this one so you can hear what they heard that seemed to really engage them or resonate with them. And just a couple of sentences we shared with them on this concept. The leadership team at Hospira believes they are empowered by our people. This concept reflects the energy that Hospira employees have within themselves to achieve greatness. Images in this concept represent the ripple effect of growing the talent, the responsibility individuals have for their own development, balance, mentorship, energy, and collaboration. And so these were the themes that resonated with our employees. And so from this internally led, internally developed branding exercise based upon the traditional customer-centric concepts that come from the commercial organization, we arrived at the Ignite brand. So the Ignite brand was born in early 2010. This is our logo and our little catchphrase that's on all of our materials at Hospira: Ignite, spark the fire within. So we launched this in early 2010 with banners and posters and all kinds of collateral materials that look very much like what you see here. We did a little bit of a teaser where we asked this question: have we sparked your interest? Because keep in mind, 16,000 employees had no idea what this meant. This was something brand new, this whole idea of Ignite, spark the fire within. So with this little teaser, we tried to generate some energy and excitement around the brand. We encouraged people to go to our intranet site and get more information. And then obviously over time, we started rolling out various Ignite branded programs and communications. You may also notice at the bottom that there are these 3 sub-brands, which became very important for the sustainability of the program, which I'll talk about in a second. But we talked about inspiring excellence, instilling new capabilities, and investing in our future. So in addition to the overall Ignite brand, there were these 3 sub-brands that we brought into play in early 2010. And so at that time, we had a number of programs in existence, and obviously since 2010, we've continued to develop other programs and offerings for our employees. And now when we communicate around those, we use these 3 sub-brands. And so the employees are able to say, oh, okay, we've got something on how to set SMART goals, or we have something about performance management and how the performance management review process is supposed to go. And all of that is in that sub-brand called Inspire, the inspiring excellence that we're trying to create. Similarly, we have programs around learning and development, the leadership development programs, career planning tools, which are all about instilling capabilities for our employees to be successful and help drive our business outcomes. And then finally, anything related to rewards, recognition, things like tuition reimbursement fall into that 3rd bucket, which is called Invest. So when you think back to what were some of the things that we were trying to achieve with this program, one was people just knowing what we've got. What is it? So through some of these communications and branding and getting stuff in front of people with explanations and organizing it into these buckets where they could connect the dots, people really started to understand what are the programs that we have, and in turn, what can I get from them? How are they going to help me be more successful? So that whole question of, well, what's in it for me? So rather than what often happens in HR-driven activities where there's just stuff that kind of comes flying at you, it's time for the performance conversation, oh, there's a class I'm supposed to take, oh, there's a new reward thing that they created in HR that I can give to my people, we tried to give it some kind of structure so that it would start to make more sense to people in these buckets under this brand so that they could see how all of this stuff tied together. But we haven't yet tackled that question of personal accountability, which was the 3rd thing on my list. So now hopefully people know what it is. Hopefully they're learning about how it ties together. We continue to do Ignite branded communications to educate people about what we've got, what's new, what should they be focused on right now. A mid-year communication might talk about setting themselves up for their mid-year performance conversation with their manager. So we try to do quarterly, timely communications to let people know what we've got, but we still haven't dealt with personal accountability. So what we've tried to do as we launch and even relaunch some of our existing programming is to kind of reframe how we present it. So in some cases, the product is not much different, but we have packaged it a little bit differently or reframed it in a way to tell employees, to suggest to employees that you have ownership of this. If you look at this little wheel, the biggest cog on the wheel is the Hospira employee. So it's no longer a paternalistic, top-down, let me as your manager tell you what you need to do to be successful. Let me tell you what your career path looks like. Let me give you that career trajectory and we can see where you fit in and what the next move is for you. We actually want to put the onus back on the employee to own a lot of that work around their own development, their career management, their engagement. So there are several programs that I'm going to highlight very quickly that were programs that fell underneath this Ignite banner, which we have specifically put out there to allow employees to take more ownership of their career, their performance management, their engagement, et cetera. So the first one is this Ignite Your Growth Toolkit, which is a program that is employee-driven. It's available and accessible through our intranet site, and through it, employees can go on and look at 4 steps to try to understand how they can put together their own career plan. So they can start with where they are, figure out where they want to go, figure out what it's going to take for them to get there, and then what resources are available for them to achieve their career aspirations. And multiple tools under each step of that process that they can individually and personally go on and execute themselves. And this creates a much different performance conversation or career management conversation, because now they can go into their manager and say, here's all the work that I've done, and here's what I'm trying to get to, and here's what I figured out I need to do to get there, and now, manager, what can you do to help me? Or what can Hospira do to help me achieve my goals that I've set forth for myself, and I've now done this self-assessment diagnostic and know exactly what I need to do to get there. A second tool that we created is called the Inspire Engagement Cards, which was a tool created this year to help put something in the hands of managers to allow them to assume responsibility for driving engagement on their teams. Because what we found is that managers want to do the right thing. They want to engage their teams. They want to do activities that are going to get people excited about being a member of Hospira, but oftentimes they just don't know where to begin. They don't know what to try. They don't know what to do. They haven't maybe heard about the great engagement activity that went on in another function in another geography. So this tool literally is cards on a ring, the way it looks in the slide, and it's done in multiple languages. So these cards can be used globally to give managers a tangible thing that they can look at, flip through, pass out at staff meetings to say, here's some things that we can do to drive engagement on our team. And over time, we just launched this recently, but over time, we have this nice big fat ring because we're going to add other ideas. As we learn about things that people are doing to drive engagement, we're going to put them in our Inspire Engagement Card Toolkit and get it out so other people can benefit from some of those ideas. And then finally, I want to highlight the Ignite Grant, which was the first program that we actually launched under the Ignite brand, or the Ignite banner, if you will. And this has been a very successful program in its 3rd year this year in 2012, where we award $5,000 to teams who have identified a particular development need that they need to get met. They submit an application, they give us the business case, the return on investment, how it's going to help them drive business, and then we select award recipients, and they can literally, in wherever they are around the globe, go out and execute that learning opportunity, because the 4 people on my team sitting in Lake Forest can't possibly know what the development needs are for 16,000 people. So it puts, again, the responsibility on the employee to identify what they need, put together an application, and make it happen. And we're there to partner, support, and obviously provide the funding. So in 2012, we were able to offer Ignite grants to 38 teams representing over 2,300 employees globally. So I'm going to quickly highlight a few of the success factors and potential barriers to success. The first success factor is what I just said. Launch a program like this, like the Ignite brand, with a big program that you think is going to really resonate. So launching with the Ignite grant was a key to our success. We didn't necessarily plan it, but having the program, having the brand take traction or get traction was critically led by the fact that we had a really big program that was very well received, that people associate with that Ignite brand. I'll highlight one other, which is number 4, which is in order to make these kinds of programs sustainable, you need to try to integrate them into other parts of your system. So, for example, when someone does their performance management conversation and they identify their development needs, they can then apply for an Ignite grant to try to get those needs met. So it all becomes interwoven. And in terms of potential barriers, we didn't experience many, but a couple of things I want to highlight as potential red flags is recognize you're potentially experiencing a cultural shift. When you go from a paternalistic system where information comes top down and your leader tells you what you need to do to be successful and you have no personal ownership in that, when you go to an employee-driven system, you are looking at a potential culture change. And finally, I'll again highlight number 4, that ensuring long-term organizational commitment is key to success. So for example, when I went to ask for funding for the Ignite grant program in 2009 to do the first program in 2010, asked for 3 years of funding, not 1, so that we could come in at least for 3 years and show people that we had an organizational commitment to this grant program. And now we're in our year 3, and we'll be seeking funding going forward, and based upon the success, we're very hopeful that it's currently in the budget, that hopefully it'll stay in the budget for future years. So finally, to highlight a couple of outcomes and results, obviously, from all of the work we did to get the word out there about this brand, we do now have global awareness of the Ignite brand, and I would argue that you could go to any corner of Hospira globally and people have heard of Ignite. They might not know every program, but they probably know about the Ignite brand. We were able to improve employee engagement scores around things like career management. Based upon a pre and post launch of the Ignite Your Growth Toolkit, we could see a movement in our engagement scores around career management. We were able to look at employee engagement measures around effectiveness of our managers and our leaders, and we've seen improvement in those scores as well. And finally, for the Ignite grant, we tracked individual learning, organizational impact, and engagement. And in all 3 measures, we were very happy to see that 97% of the people who got an Ignite grant and did a learning program experienced development of new skills and behaviors. And there was also a positive organizational impact in that quality, customer satisfaction, or efficiency, or some other organizational measure moved in a positive direction. 81% reported that outcome. And even though this wasn't specifically an engagement program, because professional development is so critically important to drive engagement, we also saw that 51% of our people reported improved feelings of engagement after receiving an Ignite grant. So with that, I am going to conclude because my time has ticked down. But I want to thank all of you for your attention, and Tom and I will be available during the breakout session to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.